Okay, before we get into looking at the tutorial reports, I just want to give you a quick introduction to the integrated help and the JSON structure. So this is the menu items, which is very similar to both the free and pro versions. The first thing we'll be looking at is the documentation. The app has a very complete user guide which goes through every element of the report. There's lots of examples in there about how to write a report. It has a lot more detail of what I'll be going through, including the tutorial reports. It has a lot of information, including examples, and is a valuable reference as you are learning. I may not be going into great depth about any one element, but all that information is here in the user guide. So let's go to our report definitions. I want to point out the structure of the reports. They all follow the same formatting, and I just want to show you what that looks like. So here we have a fairly simple report. Up the top, we have some report metadata, the page size, etc. Now, every section has associated parameter pairs, the parameter name and value. So here we've got name and value, so the page size is A4, the orientation is portrait. And then we have the band section. It's a banded report writer, so each band gets its own section. So in this instance, we have a report header, and its values are the height, and this is the fields definition. So we're putting values in the report header, and here's a name of one of those values. It's important to name our sections because they can be referenced in other parts of the report, and we'll show you how that works later. In this case, it's got a name title and has a value. That's the value that we print on the report is invoice line items, and then we have some X, Y, and font size, etc., which we'll be looking at later. But this is how we specify it. Notice the integers do not need quotes, but in general, most values do need quotes. Now, if we look at the details, it's a little bit different, but it's the same structure. So this is the first variable we'll be printing on the report, the product name. Again, the field has a name called product, but its value is being picked up from the data source, and the data source variable name we'll be picking up is product name. Note it's enclosed in curly brackets. So all variables, whether they're coming from a data source or they are system-provided variables, get enclosed in curly brackets. We can have comments which can be very handy as you're working through your report for reference and memory joggers. Okay, so that's the general structure. It's very simple and regular. It can get a bit verbose, but it's very simple. In this demonstration, we'll just quickly go through how you can start using the banded report writer very quickly. Click into it. You'll notice that all these tutorial reports take you through in a very graded manner, from very simple reports through to more complex reports. All the ones that start with tutorial like this come with the free version. So you've got these tags here so you can see what they are. Before we start, it's good to understand the data that we're using. The free version comes with some demo data already installed. It has the demo invoices and the related demo invoices lines. This is done so we can present consistent tutorial reports, not worrying about what's in your current system or if you're using a demo system. Deleting this data means the tutorial reports will be blank. So we're going to have a look at this first report here. It's the simplest possible report. It's just a straight list of our demo invoice lines. So let's have a look at it. Here we have the JSON. Now the most important sections of this, here we have the page setup. It's telling us the size of the page and the printable area, whether it has portrait or landscape orientation. Down the bottom, we have the data source. This is very simple data source. We're just picking up all the data from our demo invoice lines. This domain indicates there is no selection. The order parameter indicates we want the lines to be rendered by the record ID and then the sequence field. These fields must, of course, exist on your data. Okay, now, here's the next important section is the bands. Now we only have one band here as we're not grouping, so it's just the detail band, and it's telling us how high that should be. And then underneath here, we have the fields definition. We're printing three fields, the product, the quantity, and the amount. And under here, we have the parameters that define those fields as they're printed. Now we can print this. For all the demo reports, these tutorial reports have the dev preview enabled by default. So when we click on Generate Report, they will automatically turn up here in the preview window. So there's a quick report. Really simple. You can do lots of things just to see how things work, like if we went here and we put a background color in and a text color, and we generate the report again. You'll see here that our report now has a background teal and color white for the text. Now the other thing to notice, and it's good to point this out early on, each of these lines here have a Y value. It's not strictly necessary because by default, the report writer will put fields in a band at the centered position. So if I get rid of all these Ys and I run that report again, you'll see here it actually does a better job. Now they're all nicely centered in the middle. So that's consistent across all the reports, but it's good to point that out early on. Okay, so let's move on to our second tutorial report. In this report, we'll be structuring the report by adding a report header, and a page footer. So let's have a look at what the JSON looks like. So here are our bands. Before we just had a detail band, now we have a report header, which is simply going to put a heading at the start of the report with invoice lines with a subtitle. And at the top of every page, we're going to put the column names for the details section of the report. A point to note here is with the page headers and the report header bands, etc., they will often be quite deep. And in those cases, you do need to add the Y values for each individual element that has to appear on those bands. And of course, we have our page footer, which is down here. So very simply, we're adding a page number, and the page number is actually a reserved word the system knows about. Here it is here, the page number. So let's have a look at how that turns out. We go back to our preview again, generate the PDF, and have a look at it. Now you see it's starting to look a bit more like a report. Okay, we'll keep moving on to the other reports now. Let's look at tutorial 3, which includes styling and formatting. This adds some visual elements to the report to make it more visually appealing. If we look at the JSON, you'll see here in the page header where the column headings are rendered. We're putting a background and we're specifying that the whole band should have curved edges. We're putting an underline there too. Not strictly necessary, but this is for demonstration purposes. Now, if we look at the details, we're defining the characteristics of the detail band here in the detail band header section. And we're specifying that each detail line will have an alternating background color. One of the colors is this teal color, and the alternating color is white. And we are also specifying that it should have curved edges, and the curve should be a medium sort of curve. So let's have a look at the report. See how we are now starting to get a lot better, visually appealing report being produced. We'll have a look now at tutorial 4, which uses constants. Let's have a quick look. So here we have at the top of our report, the constants. Constants are used to define variable values that will be used elsewhere in the report, saving repetition and minimizing maintenance. So rather than changing them in each one of those instances, we just need to change them once here in the constant section. This generally applies to the detail settings in your report for each of the fields you're printing. So here, for instance, we have a constant name col product. It's obviously referring to the column values for the product field that we'll be printing in the details. It has an x-coordinate value of 50, a width of 195, and we're aligning it left. Now, if we look at where they're used, as I said, they're generally used in the detail section. So here's our product data field. We're specifying that the x value is our constant named col product.x. Notice the way we're defining it. So it's the name of the constant, a dot, and then the constant attribute. And down here we have the width again defined by the constant col product.width. The value of using constants is that we only have to define them once in our constant section, and they apply anywhere we wish to use them in the report. If we weren't using constants, we would have to individually change them for each element in the list of detail fields when refining our report. We'd have to come through and change the x value of each one of these. But when we have defined them as constants, they're defined once and they're used right through the report. Now, this won't affect the way the report looks so much, it just makes it a lot easier in the design process. We'll have a look at tutorial 5 now, which introduces the concepts of grouping and subtotals. So what's changed from the previous report? Well, we have a section here called grouping, which defines the different groups in our report. For this example, it is a single level report with one group. The group break will be based on the data field called partner name, and these are the names of the group header band, and this is the name of the group footer band. We also have here a field called continuation text. This is the text that will be printed if a particular detail band goes over more than one page. Now, the report header and the page header are much the same as before, but what we're interested in at the moment is this group header. So this is a new band that we've introduced. We're giving it a height and a background color, and we're saying these are the fields that we want to print on that group header section. So let's have a look now at the details. They are much the same as before also. Nothing special here, but what's interesting is the group footer. So this is the group footer band definition, the height, etc. Now, if we look at the fields that are being printed, this first field is a constant, just saying the customer total. But the next line is a line count, and we're printing a system variable called count. It's an aggregate type variable, and the aggregate name is count. If we look at the next field, we've named it a count sum. Again, it's an aggregate type field, and it's a sum aggregate. We are summing a field in our details section named subtotal. So if we look up here in our details section, here is our field we named subtotal with the associated data field called subtotal. Now, the other important element to notice here is the data source. Our data source has an order here, and of course, it's important that we order it in the correct sequence to ensure our breaks are occurring by partner name and subtotaling correctly. So the order here is very important. Okay, the report, let's have a look at it. You'll see here that for this customer, it has these invoice lines, and this was the count. And that's the total of all those fields in that group of detail records. Again, we have a break here for the next customer with the totals, etc. We have a grand total at the bottom of the report also. So let's have a quick look at the JSON again. You can see down here at the page footer, we have the aggregate for the sum of the subtotals. Okay, in this tutorial, we introduced the concept of grouping and defining our header and footer bands. A report can theoretically have any number of groups. However, generally there aren't more than 2 or 3. We'll have a quick look at tutorial number 6, which just adds another group and another subtotaling level to tutorial 5. But let's have a quick look at it. So you'll see here in our grouping, we've added another level, which is called the invoice name. Let's have a look at how the subtotals have been handled. Look at group footer 2, which is down here. It's doing subtotaling like we did before, but now it's doing its subtotaling at the invoice level, not the customer level. The customer level subtotaling is still happening, but it's happening in group footer 1. The other important point to notice again is the order. It's important that we're ordering by partner name, then invoice name. Let's have a quick look at the report itself. So you'll see here we have our customer name, and then we have the invoice, and we're having our subtotals by the invoice, and then we're having the customer total here also. So that is how we can have multiple bands in our report with subtotaling at each group break. So now we're going to have a look at tutorial 7, which is called the polished report. Let's have a look at the report first by clicking on the Generate Report button. So you'll see here it adds a number of elements. It adds these lines between the columns, both in the header and in the detail. In the detail section, you'll see here there's a long line that's getting wrapped, and the line height is being automatically increased to handle that. See over here also that there's a field constant *high, and that value is conditionally printed based on the value in the amount column. Also note in the header sections, it has these colored boxes where we're putting some addresses, email, and phone information. They're called panels, and you can print them anywhere and you can put text in them. So let's have a look at how that's done. So if we go to our JSON and we'll look at the header where those panels are being defined. Here's our header section, and you see these are the panels. So that's the first panel. It's got a name, it has an X and Y position, the curve, the width, and the height, and the background color, and it's got a border. That's the panel on the left, and this is the panel on the right. So now we're going to have a look at the detail section. So here are the dividers where we're putting those lines between the columns. We've got our alternating colors, and we have vertical alignment in the middle, which is actually the default. Let's have a look at that last field that we're printing, the asterisk high text. So you see it here. In the last field, there is a render if statement, indicating that if that subtotal data field on the detail line has a value of greater than 5,000, then print that asterisk high text there. So that's how we do that. There's a lot of information in here. These are all the basic tutorials, but now we move into some example reports that work on the standard Odoo demo data. We have a customer statement report which produces a decent statement with 30, 60 and 90-day balances at the bottom. We have two customer invoices. They're interesting because one is based on a data source that we call a flat data source. It's only looking at the invoice detail lines. And this is the same report, but it produced with a different data source with a header and footer detail sources. And then we go to similar reports looking at the sales quotation report and a purchase order report and a project task summary report. There's a project task summary report, especially for the community version which doesn't have timesheets. This sales quotation report has links to products on the Odoo website if installed. I encourage you to have a look at all of them in conjunction with the help manual, which has many examples of all the features in the system. In other tutorials, we'll be having a look at the automatic report generator. A couple of quick points before we leave. We have a lot of tutorial reports, as you can see. There are reports for the free and the pro versions that are there to demonstrate the main features of the banded report writer and to help you get started quickly. However, we realize that you may not want to keep all these in your system, and that is not a problem. They can simply be deleted, but they are not lost. They are always available in the community library if you ever wanted to get a tutorial back again for review or for a new report designer. Tutorial 1, here it is here. The JSON can be inspected before importing. That's a standard feature of the library. You can bring it back into your system by clicking on the import button and it will get the same name as the original. When we go back to our reports, you'll see that it is there again. So the idea is you don't need to keep all these reports as we understand that it might start to clog up your system. That's okay. You can delete them all. They're always available in the community library if you need to get them back again. Now, one final point. Wilson Works have a YouTube channel that has other informational videos explaining other features of the app and some of the foundational concepts that are certainly worth having a look at before you start. Thank you again.